All right, we live. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
How you doing this morning?
Hey, I got some coffee.
What does your cup say? What does your
How
cup say?
it says, how many mental health counselors does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Ooh, that's good. That's
My
good.
12-year-old bought me this for Christmas one year.
Oh,
Yes.
that's so cool. That's so cool. How you been holding up this winter season?
I've been super busy. So it's just been one thing after another. So I've been kind of like blinders on, super focused. I haven't had an opportunity to really look at the things, but when I do look at the things, I'm like, oh, dumpster fire. Let me go back to being focused.
Well, there's that. So, for the folks who don't know you, because it's been a while, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about you, your work, and we'll keep it going?
So I am Yulinda Renee Rahman, aka Doc U Rock. I am a doctor of clinical sexology, a licensed clinical professional counselor, researcher, author, speaker, teacher. But the main thing is I inspire to encourage people to be their authentic self, to have the audacity to show up fully 360 degrees.
365.
Yep,
I had to
365
add
or six if it's a leap year, right?
that. Or actually 13 months if we go beyond the Gregorian calendar. Sorry. Thank you for being here today. I think we've done some great work together this last 6 months. We met through Anoy, who I had on here earlier this week. Um, and we talked about decolonizing language, which was interesting because as I think about that conversation, I think about you and your work and how you always talk about defining things
Mhm.
and what is the definition. Because I'll say something, and you'd be like, what does that mean? And I'll be like, dang, she just challenged me. Let me get the dictionary. Let me
Yes.
get the dictionary and enlighten myself. And I think as I think about defining things, I want to know, what do you think before we jump into another conversation
Mhm.
of this moment? How would you define this moment in time, just based on your lived experience, your degrees? How do you define this moment?
As an opportunity.
Oh, tell us more. Go deep.
As an opportunity because there's so much going on, there's so much perceived chaos, right? And usually what chaos presents us is an opportunity for growth or not, right? Depends
Mhm.
on where we at. And so I really see it as an opportunity if we lean in and allow it to be that, right? Some people are fearful, or some people are overwhelmed, or some people are confused by it, and I think that can kind of skew what this could be, again, if we allow it to be. I really think it can be an awesome opportunity for mainly collective, just collective, right? Us coming together as collective. I think it could be that.
I love to hear that. I think one of the things I love, you said that chaos, in a way, in my head, I heard you say chaos can be productive if you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's an opportunity for us to tap into to turn chaos into, I guess, magic, because that's what I feel like I'm doing. I wake up every day and I'm like, what am I going to do today? Let's just go live with some friends for a while till it shows up.
Mm.
Because I don't have an answer except my book, Heal Your Way Forward. But I'm like, it's real chaotic. So I'm just going to show up and see what happens. No pun intended.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you said chaos is man. I mean, because basically that's what it is. And when we think about chaos, if we're gonna take it to the woo, if we think about the cosmos, the universe, I mean, basically what it is chaos, right? It is the possibility of a thing. You know what
Ooh,
I mean? It looks like chaos to us because we don't understand it.
ooh.
But what it is an opportunity. It is the invitation of something coming to fruition out of the chaos.
So hearing you say that, it takes me to chaos, the cosmos. It's chaotic when you look at it. And you're right, because when you look on the map and you look, you see the sky is black, it's stars, there's something up over here, something up over there, something up over here. Oh, look, it's a comet coming from that way. You never know what's coming to you when you're in the universe. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we see this moment as the cosmos, as the chaos, as a form of creation, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what I keep asking their people every day, what are you created? And nobody has an answer. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I see this is a good time to create something.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't know nothing else to do but to create in these type of moments.
And I'll tell you this: those are usually the leaders that emerge from the chaos. Now it all depends on where you're leading people to. I mean, that's what the conversation, But it's the people who take advantage of the chaos, right? Because they create. Because some people they become immobile, right? They become immobilized because they are overwhelmed by the chaos, while other people see it as an opportunity. Like, ooh, what can I, if you see like some paint and you
Mm-hmm.
just, you know what I mean? Like, how can I take all of this and create something meaningful or beautiful? And those are the ones who usually show up as the trailblazers in these
Well,
times.
that's what we do best, Doc. I mean, you said it best. The leaders will show up and create, which is why I've been telling folks for a while now. They do know that what they're showing us on TV is intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so intentional that you do have two choices. You can either keep taking it in and sitting in that fear, or you can feel the fear, face your feelings, have faith, and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and just when I think about when you said leaders, I'm like, ooh, you talking about that. But then it's like, but we're all leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to go into here it comes self-flagellation because it feels good, right? It
Mm-hmm.
feels good to be like, there's nothing I can do. I'm so hopeless. Oh, he said that all the black folks are gonna end DEI. Oh my God, I won't have a job. Let me tell you something. You go ahead and take DEI. I'm gonna show you something different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna show you something different. I can show you better than I can tell you because I can't be self-flagellating myself. But Doc, what does self-flagellation mean? Because I just said a word that I didn't give a definition to.
Well, before we go into that, what made me think of what you just said is either we consume or we create, right? We consume or we create. And a lot of us are consuming all of the rhetoric and the bullshit that's coming through all of the various forms of media, right? And I'm guilty too. It's like, ooh, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? What's happening? And when we're consuming, we're not creating. And that's what they want us to do. They want us to consume so that we don't have the capacity or the energy to create, right? Because creativity is the spark of leadership, is the spark of revolution, but we're not going to go there right now, okay? But self-flagellation is, I mean, it's another form of self-punishment. Like when you're beating yourself and you are punishing yourself, right? And sometimes that punishment can feel good. And it feels good because it's under your control. If you are punishing yourself, that's better than someone else doing it, right?
Hmm. It's easier and better to punish yourself sometimes because it feels good, because it's the voices in your head that can keep you stuck and not making a move. And we both know that sometimes that next move that you don't know, it might be that best one.
Mm-hmm.
And in chaos, it could be easy to sit up and say, oh, I should have voted for such and such, or I didn't vote, or this is all my fault, that all of a sudden, like, this is all out of our control. So it takes me to even wondering if self-flagellation is a form of control, not of self, but of other people.
Mm, interesting. Where are
I
we going with that? I kind of like that.
flagellate myself because it allows people to see I'm feeling a certain emotion and
Mm,
they come to me clinging to fix what's wrong. Are you okay? Do you need help? Not recognizing that I'm using my sadness and my grief as a form of control to get
mm,
that wound or that attention to that space inside me that feels stuck.
mm. Ooh, right? Okay, you have to lean back
Yeah,
on that
I
one.
have to sit back on that one.
That makes me think of the other saying that people pleasing is a form of manipulation. Ooh.
You know what? You trying to read me right now in front of these people. Okay, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real time to be vulnerable. All right, here it goes. So I was introduced to a practice of what's called the Gene Keys by Dr. Rock. And I'm at a point we doing some work together, don't matter. And it said like what you just said, people pleasing is a form of, say it again. I lost it.
Manipulation.
Manipulation. So basically, in my chart, I can go into victim mode as a form of manipulation to avoid accountability.
Mhm. Pew, 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 pew.
And so, thinking of talking about self flagellation, it's like something could happen and I could immediately go into defensiveness as a form of flagellating myself for people to feel sorry for me, and it could turn into manipulation.
Yep.
And we have to be very careful that we're not operating from that lower self that doesn't even recognize you're doing it.
Mhm.
It only shows up for me and all of us in our relationships.
Mhm.
And I think that's why self-flagellation is so dangerous, because you're so isolated and alone that you will never know that you're doing it until someone points it out to you.
Mhm. Yes. And I mean, we have a lot of that in common. That's something that, Maisha and I learned, is that our charts are very similar. So, anyways, so I also do the victim thing, and here's the thing with self flagellation, because we don't do anything for no reason, right? So if we're self-flagellating, we're getting something out of it. You know what I mean? Now, whether or not it's productive and is leading us towards our goals that we say we have, it might not be doing that, but we're getting something out of it. So the question is, what do we get out of self-flagellation? And then how can we pivot so that we can still get our needs met in a way that is more productive versus that?
Wow. How can we pivot to get our needs met? Huh. That's a really great question. I see feet outside my door right now. Give us some insights. What is some way we can pivot, Doc?
Well, first you got to be conscious. First, you got to be aware of the fact that you're doing this, which means you got to be willing to be honest with yourself, right? And that if you are self-flagellating, if you're getting something out of the self-flagellation, like what is it, right? And the first thing is awareness. And first thing that allows us to be aware is to be honest with ourselves. But a lot of us are self-deluding, right? We talk about self-love all day. Is it self-love or is it self-delusion? I mean, I'm just asking.
The real talk, if I could speak, I think for me it was self delusion. I'd be like, oh, I love myself. Oh, I love myself so much. But then I'm overgiving of my time and resources, feeling depleted, blaming everyone for why I'm so tired, getting mad that I'm tired. That's not self love. The one thing that I'm learning from this process that we're doing, that if I'm not give to myself first, I'm performing, and I'm people pleasing, and that's also a form. People pleasing and performance is a form of manipulation.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you just kind of sit with those awarenesses because you're like, ouch. Okay, let me just kind of let that marinate, right? Yes.
Ooh, someone on Instagram said self-flagellation gives an excuse to avoid action.
Ooh.
That's good.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yes.
Yep, it absolutely does.
Yes. Yes. Because if you're busy beating yourself, what are you not doing instead, right? If you say you want to call to action, if you say you want to help people, if you say you want to do this, hey, if you say you want to go back to school or whatever, but instead you're beating yourself up, you're wasting time and energy.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, I think I've been telling you for 6 months, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to get my degree. And I'm going to, because I feel, and you like, you trying to prove a point or you because you feel like it? See, a real friend will be like, you trying to prove something or do you really feel like it? I'm at the point that I feel like it. So what I did, just to hold myself accountable to you and everybody watching, I called my counselor. Hey, what I got to do? She said, girl, you so close. She said, you can be done by August.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
What I need you to do. You have an outstanding bill of $7,000. We're going to get that paid and get you back in so that you can finish your degree. And I was like, dang, it's going to be a lot of work. You know what she said? She said, your project's already done because your work speaks for itself and you've taught a certain workshop so many times. You good to go. You ready to graduate. Like, wow. So to the example of, I can say I'm going to do something for the attention of, well, why do you want to go to school? And what's holding you back? But until I make the move to say, I'm going to do it, the way that school will get paid for, or the way it won't open up until I make the first move. So we sit here and we say things to ourselves like, oh, the Trump administration is doing this. What do we do? Oh my God. Oh God, there's nothing to do. I'm so powerless. But if you really about this liberation life, Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Dr. King already told us what to do. It's already there. You just forgot. Or most people started their own movements based on their work instead of using their work to guide them, appropriated to try to make it work and wondering why you feel like nothing's working out. That's the flagellation piece. You're not powerless. The less it's all around us. The universe has the answers. We just don't take action and we just don't look at it.
And I feel like sometimes it's, if the path doesn't look like what we thought it should in our head, then we like, oh, well, then we must not be meant to continue down this path because I thought it was going to look like this. And this shit over here, crooked, is taking some U-turn. I don't know where that's going to lead me, but you have to take the steps, right? And we have to get out of our own way, Right. I think a lot of times we're in our own way.
I want to get fancy for a second. Ooh, someone on Instagram said, I always tell myself that if I have energy to feel bad about it, then I have energy to do something about it.
Ooh, come through with them with the gems, as they say. I love that.
Dropping it in here is all of us in collective work in this energy. Absolutely. If you have power to feel bad about it, you do have power, something to do it. And that's why I love to tell people, feel it, face it, feel it, so you can do something about it. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you just in your head, the subconscious is just running amok, and
Mm-hmm.
you just in a freeze state, like there's nothing to do until you snap and be like, oh wait, there is something I can do. And you
Mm-hmm.
talk to yourself, maybe in the mirror out loud. That's mirror work. Write it down, talk it out loud, whatever you have to do to tell yourself a new story.
Mm-hmm. This might be a little controversial what I'm about to say, but I think where the place where we're at collectively is necessary for people to move because people get comfortable.
Listen, that's not controversial. You wasn't even watching my live this morning when I
I
said
did
the
not.
following words that transmuted. In 2020, y'all thought y'all had a wake up, but it's 2025 and now y'all being shaken up.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't make a move until you let the shake up. It's like an earthquake. What do you do after an earthquake? During the earthquake, you, oh my God, hold on, wait, get under the table, hi, shake. But what happens after an earthquake, Doc?
Them
What are you supposed
aftershocks.
to do? There's
Mm-hmm.
aftershocks. So
Mm-hmm.
the earthquake happened on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We all experiencing aftershocks, and we have a choice to become our own paramedics, first aid, emotional first aid, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, so that we can move forward as a collective.
Yeah. I mean, we're being forced. I mean, because we've had opportunities to do what needed to be done, it didn't get done. So at some point, we get kicked in the back. And this is universe kicking all of us collectively in the back. Like, oh, y'all not going to make a move. And, again, controversial. If the other alternative would have happened, people would have gotten comfortable even more so. And it
Let,
wasn't made for us to be comfortable. I mean, it
let me
just
be real. That's the most clearest, direct thing you said, and I'm glad you said it because people thought Joe Biden was Captain Save-A-Ho. They got comfortable. Everybody thought Kamala was gonna win, and in the back of my head, I'm like, she ain't winning these. This country wasn't built to let Black women lead, not publicly at least.
mm,
They have her in her position
mm-hmm,
because there's lots of things that Joe Biden could have done for her to be a leader, and he did not.
mm-hmm,
Except for tell her, I'm backing out, you step up and you run.
mm-hmm,
So she took on his labor
mm-hmm,
because he knew she wasn't gonna win. We could keep it real.
mm-hmm,
And the only way I know we can keep it real because as Black women, we know how this country works.
mm-hmm.
And people don't like to hear the truth, and they really don't like to hear the truth from Black women, but you're going to hear it today. Unpopular opinion, if she would have won, you would have got comfortable.
Yeah,
Because
it would
ain't
have been more
nobody
of the
going
same.
to save none of us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's part of it. It's like we've gotten comfortable looking for someone to come save, and at the end of the day, we have to stop being so dependent on things outside of ourselves, right? And I think
Mm.
that's part of the issue. And that if we're going to be intradependent and not dependent, then we need to come together collectively versus looking for a great savior with a cape to come save us. Ain't nobody Superman. That's a fictional character.
Very much so. Nobody is Superman. No one's coming to save us. No one's coming to rescue us. Even I have to tell people all the time, I am not your savior. I'm in community with you. Hold me to the same community standards and agreements that we have. This is not a cult. This is a community.
Mm.
We are responsible for our individual and our collective selves, not enmeshed relationships where I'm your leader and I'm this Black woman that's you. Oh, you're the goddess. What if we were
Mm-hmm.
all gods and goddesses, but we just forgot that we have that power?
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be insensitive. I mean, this is going to really create some pain, right? I mean, when you think about something crumbling, when you think about an earthquake, when you think about Katrina, when you think about chaos and destruction, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some discomfort. Like this is not going to feel good,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not trying to make it seem like, oh, like, no, this is going to be real fucked up for a minute. You know what I mean? But we have to honor that the shift is going to require this. Labor pains don't feel good. And we're giving birth to something brand new.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. This is birthing and labor pains, and we're talking about self-flagellation, and I'm thinking of what's the first. We're going to talk about something a little bit. We might get to emotional BDSM. This is not for you all to take and think I'm talking about the kink community, kink culture, or BDSM. But what is that first B, Doc, in BDSM?
Bondage.
Bondage. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Be real. If we would have had the same person, we would have still been in the form of emotional bondage.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
No, definitely. I believe so. I mean, especially coming from people who are, descendants of being in bondage, right? When you think about being in bondage, and a lot of people are still in bondage, not because of chains, but because of mental, they're mental, how they're thinking, how they're perceiving. So when we think about bondage, there's so many different ways to be in bondage. You can be in someone's cage. You can create your own cage, right? You can prevent yourself from making moves because of fear. Fear can be its own form of bondage. So you have to determine what kind of bondage are you in.
Oh, when I think about my emotions and I think of what kind of bondage I'm in, I think about this ideology I read about the bird cage of oppression, the cage that keeps you locked in from being and feeling free.
Hmm.
And so you have to think about all of the bars that surround you, that stop you, that keep you in bondage, And there's fear. You said it best. Fear, fear facing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
fear of letting go. I mean, some people are bonding to chaos. They like thrive in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It makes them feel whole. Our mental health states. There's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting with this right now.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that word bondage, I mean, there's so much history with that word too, right? Separate from the kink community and all of that. But if you just hear the term bondage and you think about, like, damn, like my bondage was my victimhood, my victim
Mm,
mentality, my woe was me was keeping me stuck because instead of me being productive, I was over here allowing myself to be self-persecuted,
right.
you
Oh,
know?
that's good. Your victimhood. Someone else said on Instagram, avoidance is bondage too.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yes, avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you watching live or even the replay, comment what's something that you think that's keeping you in bondage, emotionally, mentally, that's stopping you from making your next move. If I would say anything, I would say we said fear, we said avoidance, we said victimhood, people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Here's an example. You were like, "We're gonna do this. I'm gonna put makeup." I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna take my bonnet off. I'm gonna do my little hair, put some makeup on." Girl, please, y'all gonna see me in this blue bonnet till I feel like it.
Yes, I love it.
Um, Somebody else in the comments said that some people are so used to drama that happiness is scary.
Ooh,
So
Lord,
trauma could be bondage.
that hit me in the chest because that one's personal. Like for me, that actually triggered me just a little, activated me. Right, that's the whole conversation we had in Show Up, the difference between triggered and activating. But that's activating for me because for a long time, happiness didn't feel safe because my happiness was conflated with trauma.
Mm,
So I agree 100%. So happiness for me is like, nope, can't be too happy. That's
yeah.
scary.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
listening to that, and I know sometimes I could be sitting somewhere, and my kids be like, "Mom, you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." They're like, "What's like your face? You just don't look happy." So then I'm
Mm.
thinking, if am I sitting around replaying traumas in my head and not being aware of my body language?
Mm.
Because I could tell you so many times that I was in, for example, we were in Mexico, and I was just sitting. There's pictures of me, and people are just like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Mm.
Right? And it's like, what was I navigating or thinking about to be that way, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Did you are you saying in the commentary absurdity is bondage?
Hmm. I would have to know what they mean by that. What does absurdity
Unless we
mean?
just said something and they're saying that it's absurd.
Oh, y'all saying, oh, could be. I
It
don't know.
could be. That's if that's what you think, that's great. Congratulations. We don't argue with people we disagree with. We just let you speak whatever's on your mind. You don't have to agree. That's the other thing. That's bondage. Agreeable. Being agreeable keeps people in bondage. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we were socialized here in America, right? We think the same, we believe the same, we feel the same. It's like codependency, which is also another form of bondage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yes.
glad that you don't agree, and I'm glad you think that it's absurd. I'm grateful. Oh, fear of dealing with absurdity. Tell us more. What absurdity? Like fear of dealing with foolishness, fear of dealing with, I'm gonna pin this here.
Yeah, because I would want to know more too. Like, what do you mean? Like, define this for us. Paint us a picture. What do you mean by that?
Mhm.
Dealing with absurdity.
Dealing with absurdity. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I can think of. I mean, I can come up. with ideas of what that means to me, because people can say what we're dealing with, what we're experiencing right now globally is absurd. Like, what the hell is this timeline we're on?
Right.
It's absurd, right? So I don't know. Let us know.
Let's see if they another percent. Are you saying irrationality?
No,
Uh,
we pause. We really want to know. Like, we like, tell us.
Someone said maybe engaging with it. Absurdity. Don't
Right,
make
we
me
got us
pull up the
all in the comments
dictionary.
trying to figure it out.
Right? Absurdity definition. The state of being ridiculous or wildly unreasonable.
Mm. Well, I mean, so you said the fear of. So say the comment again. What did they say?
Oh, okay. The fear of absurdity. Okay, she came back. Thank you, Chris. Let me pin it up here so you can read what she said.
Okay.
And then I want to push back on you, Chris, a little bit because that's what we do here. Okay, she says, okay, I am white. When I'm confronted with absurdity, I get ungrounded and confused.
And confused. So when we think about the definition of absurdity, like ridiculousness, like, your opinions or your viewpoints are so wildly removed from reality, it's like I can't even do anything with it. So my question would be, why do you feel a need to engage or navigate someone's absurdity? Because it gets to a point where people are super unreasonable, then it becomes an energy vampire to continue to engage in that. So it's like, where are you trying to get to with that? What are your thoughts, Manisha? Where do you think this
I
means?
think in the context of what I'm reading and what I know about people in white bodies that are women,
Mm-hmm.
women, or just gender expansive white body people, when things come across as like that's not in alignment with their values, they get ungrounded and confused.
Mm.
And so, like, maybe hearing somebody's president say, I'm the most, if it wasn't for me, TikTok wouldn't be saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that they would get ungrounded about and confused.
Mm.
Just thinking of, like, just using that example, a certain president saying, oh, I saved TikTok. And you're like, nigga, you ain't, ooh.
That where you was at?
I forgot where I was. Sorry. Don't y'all say that word out loud. I was here with Doc and I was using Black vernacular English. Please do not repeat that. Please do not repeat that. That's something that
I do that all the time. Like, oops, my bad.
Black
Wrong
folks
audience.
do in community with Black people. And I'm with a Black woman, so it just slipped. Yeah, don't say that. Okay.
Wrong
Don't
answer.
say that. And if you gotta come back like, oh Maisha, you said this. Black vernacular that Black folks speak with other Black folk. I was just a little too comfortable. I want one thing I want to push back on is that you said you were white, and I need this is what I need white bodies to do for me in 2025. We know you white.
Mm-hmm.
Holding on to the identity of white and liberation, it just I you're over identifying that with that for people in white bodies. We already know you're white. And I would love to hear more people saying, well, in my experience, this is what happens to me. In my experience, this versus, well, I'm this, because you're associating you being a white person with getting dysregulated when someone says something you don't agree with. And we all do that. So I just want you all to think about with the context in which you people, folks in white bodies say, I'm white.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we don't understand when we're using our labels as a form of attention, as a form of self-flagellation, as a form of people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes I've been in so many spaces with white body people for so many years that I think everyone's like, well, I'm white and I'm this and I'm that. Okay, yes, you are white, but it's like you're saying it as if like you want me to be like, yeah, you're white and you're bad. Like you want me to vilify you for being white, and that's not what I do on this account.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that really quick.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But this person was saying that when she's engaged, she's not letting go. That's her fear. And she further said that she's being absurd.
Okay.
And then someone else said, yeah, but when most of us who are white haven't even owned that yet. Well, that's not my job to worry about those of us who haven't owned it. I'm talking about the folks that have owned it. Do you see, like, I'm not worried about in my work, I'm not worried about people who have owned it yet. I'm not worried about people. I'm not worried about convincing the people that haven't owned it. That is not my job. That is not my emotional labor. Personally, I don't think that's anybody's emotional labor because it takes the focus off your journey and
Mm-hmm.
those who are on the journey already engaging in the work. My job
Mm-hmm.
is to go back and get those who aren't ready. Leave them where they at so they can FAFO and then they'll wake up and own themselves in their work. That's
Mm-hmm.
like saviorism and rescuing. Leave them where they at. It's too much work for us to do to be worried about them over there who don't want to hear what we have to say, but we keep trying to convince them, right? Manipulation. That's a form
Mm-hmm.
of manipulation to me. If I'm trying to keep convincing you, take this journey with me, and this is why you're bad, because we as white people have to tell. Yeah.
That makes me, because I've come a long way from that, because I used to be someone who would attempt to bring along, or who would hold space for people who want to vent but don't necessarily want to then make moves, right? It's like, okay, you can vent, we all frustrated, it's like, but then now what, right? So I've learned that I am no longer a safe space for people who just want to, excuse my language, bitch and moan. I am no longer a safe space for that. I used to be. I might be later on, but right now in this moment, I'm not. And what I've also learned is that it's really egotistical to say out your mouth that I left someone behind. You don't have the capacity to leave someone behind. Either they're ready or they're not. That's a them decision, not a you decision. So we can't leave anyone behind. And the only thing we do is a disservice to ourselves. If we're meant to be on this square at number 10, and we go backwards to number 2 to bring somebody who's not ready, only person you're leaving behind is where you're supposed to be, yourself.
And it takes me to thinking about Doc Harriet Tubman.
Mm.
You think Harriet Tubman was finna sit up and be like, okay, stay right here. I gotta go back and get, like, they done got like not even halfway out the plantation. She like, wait right here, but you still on the master's property? No way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that just popped up for me. It's my
Mm-hmm.
message. Like,
Mm-hmm.
with Harriet Tubman stopped moving forward, not even outside of the land of the plantation to go back and get somebody.
Mm-hmm.
After they were already lined up in formation, all of them ready to go, but one person said, no, I'm good.
Yeah. And if you were already on the road with us and you decide you want to go back and you jeopardizing what the fuck we got going on, because you're not about to mess it up. I'm just saying, she was not about to let you fuck it up for us, because now you got cold feet and now you're going to go back and now you're going to jeopardize our movement. No, we're not doing that.
I mean, I gave that reference in a live this week. I don't know. I've been live so much this week because that's how I'm moving through the chaos. I gave the reference of the Bible about Lot's wife. The angels and them went down, said, Lot, what's popping? Go here, but don't look back. Lot told his whole family, we packing, we leaving up. God said, don't look back. They was all going for it. Lot's wife looked back, turned into a pillar of salt. He had to go with his grief and go. He couldn't look back because he was told he would turn to a pillar of salt. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something to think about. What is the lessons? What happens when you look back?
I guess it depends on why you're looking back, right? You know what I mean? I guess that's the intentionality of it. Like, are you trying to see what you're leaving behind? But if you've got a message that what is for you is ahead of you, you're wasting energy by looking backwards. And if you're looking backwards, that means you might have missed something ahead of you that was going to be informing where you need to go next. So now you didn't miss some shit, because you were too busy looking back. So I guess it all depends on what was the point of looking backwards.
Whew, Jesus. Now, if it's the spirit of Sankofa, you look back to get some lessons so you know how to move forward, that's different. But if you looking back and reminiscing because you remember the time when we fell in love when we first met.
But that time, I heard the Michael Jackson reference.
Yeah, that's all. Real quick. Bring some entertainment to the space. Somebody shared this, and I want to share here. Victimhood is speeded by feelings of guilt, and guilt is a familiar bondage that feels safe. So happiness can feel scary, especially when so many are suffering. It can elicit guilt.
Mm-hmm. I put up a post not too long ago about it's okay to be okay, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to pretend like you're suffering or you're in grief or whatever. Like, if you're in a good place, you can be in a good place and still have empathy for people who are not. But I don't think you should have to minimize or deny your moment of joy, especially in the midst of chaos. Hold on to that joy because that shit could be gone tomorrow. How dare you,
Exactly.
discount it? Nah. Mm-mm.
Exactly. And one more says, I love quote I heard, there's no future in the past.
Mm.
It reminds me of this quote I heard, there ain't no future in your fronting. Sorry, I was waiting to say that since I saw that comment.
But I don't know how I feel about that. There's no future in your past. See, then I'm gonna start getting into some woo-woo stuff, and I don't know if we're ready for
No,
the woo-woo.
I gotta back up. Like, so when I say look back and bring nobody, I mean like mind your energy because not everyone's ready to go. But
Mm-hmm.
you do have to look back and pull out the lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if let's say something pops up in my current relationship, I have to look back and say, am I respond? Sometimes I have to say, am I responding to my partner I'm in a relationship now, or is this a behavior from my past, from a former partner, and I'm projecting my insecurity from that former relationship?
Mm-hmm.
So there are instances where you got to look back and be like, and then come back and say, oh, this ain't that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or having to look back and thinking about how hard I had to fight to get my kids' autism diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then looking at another parent with the same struggle and being like, oh, let me remember that remembrance of, oh, these are the steps that I took. Here are the
Mm-hmm.
steps that might work for you so they can get the support that they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're repeating the past. So, you know what I mean? We're repeating it right now. I mean, people have been talking about Reaganomics and all this other stuff. We're repeating the past. You know what I mean? And they say, like, what's the saying? If you don't know your past, you're deemed to repeat it, And so, yeah. And so if we look at the past and we realize, like, ooh, that didn't work, we should probably
Mm-hmm.
not do that again, right? But then if we forget the past, because now we're comfortable and we're forgetting, oh, wait a minute, we're in a point in time where I remember this shit happened before. It started to creep up on us and we ended up in a really bad place. But now we're blinded because we're consuming, we're not creating, and now we missed all the signs or we ignored them. And now here we are.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And then one more from the comments saying that I saw a clip by Billy Porter aligns with what you are describing, saying not to argue. It's not conductive to the movement. Speak your truth, but waste no energy arguing with those who aren't interested.
I agree. Don't argue, but I am curious. Like, I'm curious about people. If someone has arrived at a difference of opinion from me, I would be curious as to how did you get here? Right? Like, what has been your lived experience that got you to the point where you think this way and it's so different from me? I'm curious. How do we end up at a crossroads and we're going in opposite directions? Tell me about yourself. I'm interested in you.
That's all I be telling people. If you just get curious with people instead of trying to be their teacher,
Mm,
trying to have power over them by prove to me, no, get curious. Hey, man, I'm curious. How'd you become a Trump supporter? What was it about Donald Trump? I have this conversation often.
mm-hmm,
What was it about Donald Trump that you gravitated towards him?
mm-hmm,
Oh, just immigration. That's it. Oh, okay. Oh, but you think that women should have the right to do what they want with their bodies? Oh, okay.
mm-hmm,
Um. Oh, and you're still in the anti-racist. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. So
mm-hmm.
you're on the anti-racism journey. You're a Trump supporter. You're just supporting him because of immigration issues and wanting to get the most dangerous folk who've crossed the border out of our country. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gotta like it. I just be
Mm-hmm.
wondering. Like I get curious, and there's no judgment. It's
Mm-hmm.
strictly curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's strict because I think if we made more space to listen and get curious with folks, we wouldn't have as many problems as we have as a people.
Yes. Yes, because for a lot of people, it wasn't even necessarily about Trump per se. It was about anti this, right? It's not that, so I'm gonna choose this, and I'm choosing this because this appears to be more in alignment with things that are important to me based off my lived experience. Same
Mhm.
thing on the other side. I'm choosing this side because based off my lived experience and my viewpoints, this aligns better than this. Some people like neither one of these motherfucking options are good for me, so fuck the whole process. So it's like human to human connection is really what's missing because people are speaking from some levels of like arrogance. Like, how dare you get to tell someone that how they ended up at their decision is invalid when you ended up at yours? Why is yours valid and theirs not?
Because we want to have the right to be right,
Mm,
to the right to make demands, the right to deny, Like we don't even recognize how codependent we are on each other, that we turn our feelings and thoughts and words into manipulation. Everyone likes to swing around the word narcissist. Like that's the new industrial complex to me. The narcissist, and I got this from what's her name? Can't think of her name right now. Oh my god, Tanya. The narcissist industrial complex.
Mm.
Everybody's a narcissist now. And
Mm.
in my head, I'm like, don't y'all know we all have that part inside of all of us? Like all of us have it. Some of us just it's more profound than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, most of us, if not all of us, have some form of narcissistic traits. I mean, everybody uses, I mean, words become trendy. That's why I always like to define things. Like when you're using this word that everybody and their mama using and not necessarily correctly, what does it mean to you so I can make sure we're on the same page? Oh, you mean that this person's an asshole and they didn't show up the way that would have felt good to you. And so you're calling them a narcissist when in actuality, they just didn't do what you wanted them to do. Okay, got it. So now I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had another thought, but it went somewhere. See if it come back.
Hopefully it does. Because there's so much we can do. This idea of chaos and then the cosmos. And then when I look at chaos and how close cosmos is to the word chaos
Mm-hmm.
and creation, you have to think about, isn't that how, well, in some spiritual texts, isn't that how the world was created from chaos,
Mm-hmm.
from the cosmos?
Mm-hmm. Depending on who you ask. Depending on who you ask. I mean, at the end of the day, it really is about seeing the human in everybody. You know, all of our decisions have consequences, whether or not those are good or bad or neutral. So if someone makes decisions and they have a negative consequence, that's an opportunity for them to get some to learn from it. They collect some data. So you might not agree with how they move, but if there will be consequences, and that's on them to face it, you know. And right now we're seeing some consequences that are happening right now based off some people's decision. Yep. You know, hey.
Yeah. And as I've been seeing most people say, you gotta let them people FAFO. They starting the FAFO right now. But it's not your job, friends. I know it might be funny. Stop laughing at folk who's learning from their choices. That's not kind. We're not even kind anymore at this point. We're so many. Oh, I am. Can't speak for y'all either. So many folks are so like, ooh, I can't wait to see how it falls on them. Ooh, what is that called? Consequence culture or like karma culture? You're so wrapped up in seeing bad things happen to people that you don't even know what it's like to look for good, to see the good in your fellow man because you want to see somebody get caught slipping.
And that's karma itself. Like if you are keying someone's downfall, like don't you think that's being added on your chart? Like, oh, you think it's funny that people lost their jobs or they, you know what I mean? It got snatched away from them. They had you got hired letter and all of a sudden it got snatched at the final hour. Some people are losing contracts at the final, like, that's funny. Now, consequences. I ain't mad at them. Like, hey, like you said, FAFO, but I don't have to be gleeful about it. How is that helpful or productive? And what does that say about you?
And that's the part that no one thinks about. What does this say about me? What does cheering for someone losing their house, their job, their car, their health insurance? I saw one about people making fun of the people who voted for him about Obamacare and them going to lose their Obamacare and that's what they get. As someone who is that's not fully insured, like that's not funny. Because we don't even know how many of those people's kids got autism, but they didn't know that the Affordable Care Act was called Obamacare. So laughing at that to me is just like, that's kind of inhumane. We really don't know how to be human anymore. We have really forgotten what it means to just be present and just be human.
What it reminds me of is when a victim becomes a perpetrator. I get it, right? When you've been hurt, you've been abused. You know what I mean? Like when you get some form of satisfaction out of it because it's not you. And I mean, unfortunately, people are like, oh, it ain't me this time. Oh, look, it's your turn. I get it. But my question is always, how is this helpful? How is this moving us forward? I can understand it as someone who did it to myself. I perpetrated my damn self. So I get it. But it gets to a point of how is this helping me? Is this helping me move forward? Or am I having a moment where my wounded self is responding? I'm responding from my wounded self, and that's okay. Admit it and move forward. But wallowing in the wound isn't going to help anybody.
Yeah. And one live public example of this, for example, y'all, is when the LA fire started and hella
Mhm.
people were like, oh, look at them rich people. That's what they get. Y'all, LA ain't just full of rich people. It was some unhoused people that lived up there. It was some multi-generational families living up in those hills because they
Mhm.
great somebody went there and bought that house when they couldn't buy a house anywhere in Los Angeles. Like it's deeper than eating the rich.
Mhm.
And it's wild, not crazy. It's wild.
Mhm.
I got two things to share from Instagram. One person says, our culture post pandemic especially supports this narcissism capitalism and it fuels individuality. Everyone needs their own car, own house, own self worth, and it leads us from community.
Mhm.
I would agree.
Mhm.
I remember being in California once and looking around at all the cars, Doc, like, and looking at everybody. I'm like, why do we need all this?
Mhm.
What happened to a generational living, like when your grandmama lived with your mama and your aunties and sometimes your cousins all had to live in one house? What happened?
Well, I know for me personally, it would be hard for me to give up all of my stuff individually because I don't trust people because I've been disappointed.
Mm,
Right. So, I mean, there's reasoning for it. And so, what that requires is us to be brave. Right. Am I willing to lean into this fact that I have trust issues because of my lived experience where I was disappointed? So, I had to figure this shit out by myself. Can I now lean past that and allow myself to trust again, even though I might be hurt? Do I have that courage? And some do, and some don't.
mm, mm. Do I have that courage to lean into trust again?
Mm-hmm. Because I'm
Mm,
depending on you to get me to work because we sharing the car and now your ass late, or you got drunk last night and now I'm late for work, but I'm depending on you because we sharing the car and now I'm late for work and I get ridden up because I was depending on you and you didn't show up. So fuck that. No. You know what I mean? And so when we talk about collective responsibility, we have to be willing to show up and do our part. And if we can't, be willing to have that conversation. Hey, you know what? I was out a little late last night. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come scoop you. Let's create some other alternative so that I can make moves. But people have been disappointed
yep.
chronically, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah,
And
takes
here's
work in the community.
one more is that we're tying our emotions to the success or failures is a distraction from what we personally need to focus on ourselves.
To other success or phase. Yes. What are your thoughts to that?
Um, I think we always tie our value to, we were taught how to do that. And it's America. You're great. You're exceptional. You're the best. Be all you can be. So then we
Mhm.
tie ourselves to our own failures and others, and it distracts us, especially others. It distracts us. It's
What are
all,
you?
there's so much that's a distraction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This makes me think about being a parent, right? How we're so focused on, is my kid doing right? Are they going to school? Are they getting good grades? Are they doing this? At what point do we allow our kids to make decisions and we stop taking ownership of their process? It's been really difficult for me to just be like, hey, I'm here to support. If you need me, you're at the age where you need to learn to take responsibility for your actions.
Mhm.
But if I keep focusing on trying to force you to go a certain route, what that does is that takes energy away from me doing my own work. So I feel that. And it's hard. It's hard.
It's so hard. It's you bring up that parenting thing, having an almost 20-year-old. It's like I finally had to let go, and he's finally like, "Oh yeah, Mama got this appointment. I'm gonna need to go." I'm not like, "Oh, make sure you do this, make sure you do that." That stuff it was exhausting. I think I
Man.
all 2024. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, and I could see it in his face. And I finally just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's, "Oh hey, I got this appointment tomorrow. Could you help me get there?" Okay, cool, no problem. The hands off. It's hard. It's so hard to just take your hands off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was taking me. I'm worried about what paperwork he needs to fill out, knowing I got paperwork to fill out myself.
Oh, this is one that hit me. I was so busy making sure like my kids get to the doctor, whatever. When I finally got to the doctor, they was like, "You ain't been to the doctor in 8 years." 8 fucking years. I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice it happened. Ooh, I'm about to get emotional. Ooh, I didn't even notice. I was so busy making sure everybody else in this household was taken care of that when I went to the doctor, it's like, "You ain't been here since 24." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, okay."
But
Let me fix that.
but as as women or, gender expansive people, I'll say that,
Mm-hmm.
we are socialized to do that. They
Mm-hmm.
tell us to make sure your kids are this and do that and clean and cook and do this and do.
Yeah.
Now, at this point for us, it's like when you wake up in the morning, take your shower, go put your clothes in the washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody has a role in this house because it's too much. Not
Mm.
going to the doctor for 8 years is too much.
Yeah, 8 years. And so now my goal this year is to invest in myself, like whatever that looks like, and that starts with just health. Go take your ass to the doctor, get your teeth done,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Just really basic necessities that I've been neglecting because I had been, worried about everybody else. And that's another form of bondage right back there.
Absolutely, that is bondage. That's a form of self-sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being a
Self-flagellation.
self-flagellation, being the authority for everybody else but yourself, right? I think about that authoritative parenting. I'm still working to heal up. That do as
Mm-hmm.
I say, not as I do. And now I see him doing as I do, and I'm like, oh, oh, get ready for this one. I'm sitting up
Yes.
there yelling down the stairs, "Hey, me do this." And the next day, my daughter's coming up the stairs. I said, "So she's like, Mom, and I'm like, that's that do as I do. Can't even get mad at it. Can't get mad
No.
at it."
Mm-mm, no, I have pro sarcastic folks in this house. Everybody a pro at the sarcasm. And then they turn it towards me. I'm like, valid. I can't
Right.
just.
You can't even, like you said, you get, maybe some of y'all are still struggling. If you watch it, you get mad. At this point, I just be like, okay, you right. Like you go to a freeze for a second too, because you want, like, that old you was like, and you gotta hold it. Like, okay, I got you.
Yes, they cracked me up too. They was like, we got it from you. I'm like, point taken.
All right. I get it. But this is a really good note. Someone says, as we're talking about bondage and self-flagellation, someone says self-care conquers self-flagellation.
Ooh,
That's really good.
I like that. I like that. And
Yes.
what is so? And I had did a video about this about what is self care, right? Self care ain't just bubbles and nails and shit like that. Sometimes self care is getting the hell out the bed and washing your behind. Sometimes
Sometimes
that's what it is, you
for me,
know?
that's the easiest thing to do. Self-care for me is getting some of that good old pink salt from the shop from the pantry and throw it in the bathtub
Mm-hmm.
and just laying there, calling it a
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yes. Yes. So don't compare your self care to some of the things you're seeing on social media. You feel like, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not loving myself enough. It's like, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, self-care is showing up on a live with a bonnet and a bathrobe because you feel like it.
Yes, yes. And self care for me was because I just came from a pole dancing class, y'all. I'll tell y'all about that another day. But I was like, ooh, I could just put some face on. I'm like, well, Yulinda, you can't put face on without washing your ass, so you might want to do that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
self care for me was
Wow.
taking a shower and like, okay, I'm gonna do the whole thing, right? Just instead of me just faking the funk, like y'all wouldn't know if I didn't take a shower and I just threw some lipstick on. Y'all wouldn't know. But me taking care of myself is like, Yulinda, take the time to take care of yourself. Like,
Yeah,
if you get a chance to put some face on, cool. If not, fuck it.
it's all good. It's all
It's
good.
all
I
good.
was really about to put on the performance for y'all to make it look like I took care of myself, knowing that I woke up, took a shower, put this bonnet on, moisturized my face. Y'all see how good my skin
Yeah, I
looking?
see that skin is skinning.
Skin is
Okay.
happy, girl. I'm like, oh, am I still 35? Because I could pass, honey. Took care of my skin, put my bathrobe on, and here we are.
Here we are.
This is self-care for me. Y'all know I'm still getting over long COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said a nap is their self-care. Someone said self-care today is trauma response to cleaning to show I have power over myself space. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's ooh,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, wow.
Talking about.
A trauma response. For me, I call that nervous system regulation. But for you, it's a trauma response. I feel you.
Mm-hmm. And recognizing that's what's up. Being
Yeah.
aware of what it is.
You on your healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
All right, friends. Well, Doc, thanks for being with us today. Thank you all for watching live. We'll have Doc on again in the near future. I'll be live with Lisa on Sunday. We're talking about more. We're talking about AI
Mm-hmm.
and cybersecurity, how to protect yourself from these digital AI things we got going on. And Doc and I will be back later. And stay tuned because we're gonna be asking y'all to show up. Y'all showed up in the fall for that show up challenge, and now we need you to show up in the spring. So stay tuned for that show up announcement. Are you ready to show up? Do you have what it takes to own your stuff? We'll find out.
All right.
All right, y'all. See you later.